December 7th, 1941, Pearl Harbor. While the Arizona burns and the Oklahoma capsizes, one battleship, written off by Navy brass as too old, too slow, and too outdated to matter, sits in the harbor, taking hit after hit. They said she was obsolete. They said she belonged in a museum. But what happened next would make the Japanese Navy wish they'd sent every plane they had to finish her off. Because this relic from World War I would go on to become the most feared warship in the Pacific. And the Japanese would learn to dread the sound of her guns more than any other ship in the American fleet. This is the story of how an Underdog battleship rewrote the rules of naval warfare and got the last laugh against the empire that tried to destroy her. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear will change everything you thought you knew about the Pacific War. What's up, history fans? If you're new here, welcome to the channel where we uncover the incredible true stories that your history teacher never told you. And if you're a returning subscriber, thank you for being here. You're about to witness one of the greatest comeback stories in naval history. Before we dive in, do me a huge favor. Smash that like button right now. Here's why. YouTube's algorithm shows this video to more people when you engage early. And trust me, this story deserves to be heard. Plus, if we hit 15,000 likes, I'll release a bonus video next week about another Underdog weapon that changed WWII. Now, let me ask you something. What makes a weapon obsolete? Is it age, design, speed? Or is it something else entirely? Because in 1941, the US Navy had a problem. They had battleships, lots of them. But most were designed during or right after World War I. And by 1941 standards, they were considered dinosaurs. Too slow to keep up with aircraft carriers, too old to stand up to modern Japanese battleships, too outdated to matter in a modern war. That's what the experts said. And then Pearl Harbor happened. And one of these obsolete battleships would prove everyone wrong in the most spectacular way possible. But here's the twist that'll blow your mind. The very things that made her obsolete became her greatest strengths. Let's dive in. Our story centers on the USS West Virginia, BB-48 to the Navy. Launched in 1921, she was a Colorado-class battleship, and by Pacific War standards, she was ancient. 20 years old when Pearl Harbor was attacked. Let me put that in perspective for you. Imagine fighting a 2025 war with technology from 2005. No smartphones as we know them, no modern drones. That's how outdated the West Virginia seemed. Here are the cold, hard facts. Displacement, 32,600 tons fully loaded. Length, 624 feet. Max speed, 21 knots. That's about 24 per million for you landlubbers. Main armament, 8 16-inch guns and 4 turrets. Armor, up to 16 inches of steel belt armor. Now, compare that to Japan's newer battleships like the Nagato or the game-changing Yamato they were building. Faster, more advanced, more modern in every way. The West Virginia and her sisters, they were slow. They guzzled fuel. Their fire control systems were from the 1920s. Naval strategists in 1941 had already written these ships off. The future, they said, belonged to aircraft carriers and fast battleships. Ships like the West Virginia were destined for secondary roles. Shore bombardment, convoy escort, maybe training duty. She was the Navy's version of that old, reliable pickup truck in your driveway. Still runs, but you're not taking it street racing. But here's what nobody understood yet. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways. Sometimes experience beats innovation. And sometimes you don't need to be the fastest. You just need to be the toughest. The day everything changed. December 7th, 1941, 7:55 a.m. Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. Captain Mervyn Bennion commands the West Virginia. She's moored at Battleship Row, berth F6, outboard of the Tennessee. It's a quiet Sunday morning. Church services are about to begin. Sailors are enjoying breakfast. Some are still asleep. And then the sky fills with Japanese aircraft. Within the first 10 minutes, she was hit by at least 5 torpedoes, some accounts say 7, and to 2 armor-piercing bombs converted from 16-inch shells. Let me paint you a picture of what that means. Each torpedo carried approximately 450 pounds of explosive. They punched through the ship's anti-torpedo bulges and flooded multiple compartments. The West Virginia began listing immediately, tilting to port at a dangerous angle. On the bridge, Captain Bennion was mortally wounded by shrapnel from an exploding bomb. As he lay dying, he refused morphine, wanting to stay conscious to command his ship. Think about that for a second. Your ship is sinking. You're dying. And you refuse pain medication because your crew needs you. That's the kind of men who sailed on the West Virginia. As the ship listed further and further, Lieutenant Claude Ricketts and a team of damage control sailors made a decision that would save the ship. They did something that sounds insane. They intentionally flooded compartments on the opposite side of the ship. Counterflooding. It's a technique where you deliberately let water into your ship to balance it out. One mistake, flooding the wrong compartment, flooding too fast, flooding too much, and the entire ship sinks. But Ricketts calculated it perfectly. The West Virginia settled upright onto the harbor bottom, her decks just above water. She didn't capsize like the Oklahoma. She didn't explode like the Arizona, but at a cost. 106 officers and men were killed that day. And as the smoke cleared and the fleet took stock of the damage, everyone assumed the West Virginia was finished. Just another casualty of Pearl Harbor, a monument to be salvaged for scrap. They had no idea what was coming. Here's something most people don't know about Pearl Harbor. The real battle wasn't just on December 7th. The real battle was what came after, the desperate race to salvage and repair the damaged fleet. Because here's the hard truth. America was losing. Badly. In the months after Pearl Harbor, the Japanese war machine steamrolled across the Pacific. The Philippines fell. Singapore fell. The Dutch East Indies fell. Wake Island, Guam, gone. America needed ships, desperately. And the West Virginia sat in Pearl Harbor's mud, flooded, damaged, and written off. The Navy's salvage teams, led by Captain Homer Wallen, looked at the West Virginia and saw something nobody else did. Potential. Yes, she was old. Yes, she was damaged. But she had something priceless. She was salvageable. The work began in May 1942. Let me walk you through what they faced, the challenges. 1. The ship was essentially a steel tomb. Over 60 bodies were still trapped inside, including 3 sailors found in an airtight compartment who had survived for 16 days before suffocating. They'd marked off the days on a calendar. 2. Massive torpedo damage. Holes big enough to drive a truck through, entire sections of the hull ripped open. 3. Oil contamination. Fuel oil had leaked throughout the ship, making everything slippery, toxic, and flammable. 4. Time pressure. Every day the West Virginia sat unusable was another day. America fought with fewer ships. The salvage took 7 months. Divers worked in zero visibility water contaminated with oil. Engineers designed custom patches for the torpedo holes. Pumps ran 24/7 to remove thousands of tons of water and oil. On May 17, 1942, she was refloated. And here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. The Navy faced a choice. Quick repairs and send her back to war as is, or take the time to do something nobody expected. They chose option 3, completely rebuild her from the inside out. The West Virginia was sent to Puget Sound Naval Shipyard in Bremerton, Washington. And what happened there was extraordinary. Think of it like this. Imagine taking a 1920s car, gutting the entire interior, and rebuilding it with 1940s technology, but keeping the proven, reliable chassis. Here's what they did. They ripped out her old 1920s fire control and installed the cutting-edge Mark 8 fire control radar and the Mark 38 gun director system. This was huge. These systems could calculate firing solutions faster and more accurately than any human crew. They could track targets beyond visual range. Suddenly, the West Virginia could shoot farther and more accurately than ships twice as modern. They added 16 5-inch 38 caliber dual-purpose guns that could shoot at ships or aircraft, 40 40mm Bofors anti-aircraft guns, 50 .50 caliber machine guns. The old Battleship became a floating fortress of anti-aircraft fire. SK air search radar, SG surface search radar, Mark 8 fire control radar. She could now see enemy ships and aircraft before they could see her, enhanced torpedo protection, improved compartmentalization, better damage control systems. She was tougher than ever. By keeping her original slow speed and massive armor, but adding modern electronics and weapons, the Navy accidentally created something unique. She was a tank, a fortress, a floating gun platform that could take incredible punishment while dishing out devastating firepower with pinpoint accuracy. The reconstruction took until July 1944, nearly 2.5 years. Many in the Navy questioned whether it was worth it. Wouldn't that time and money be better spent building new ships? But when the West Virginia rejoined the fleet, everything changed. Yuli 1944. The West Virginia steams out of Puget Sound. Her crew, many of them survivors from Pearl Harbor, stand on deck in their dress whites. This isn't just a ship going to war. This is revenge. And the Japanese Navy was about to learn a terrifying lesson. But before we get to the battles that made her legendary, I want to take a quick 30-second break to talk about something important. All right, we're back. Now let's talk about how this obsolete battleship became a nightmare for the Japanese Navy. October 1944, the Battle of Leyte Gulf. This is it, the largest naval battle in history. Over 200,000 personnel, hundreds of ships. The battle that would decide the fate of the Philippines and potentially the entire Pacific War. The Japanese Navy throws everything they have into this battle. It's their last chance to turn the tide. And the West Virginia? She's part of Rear Admiral Jesse Oldendorf's force defending Surigao Strait. Now here's where tactics come into play. Oldendorf positions his force perfectly. Battleships across the northern exit of the strait, with destroyers and cruisers on the flanks. It's called crossing the T, a classic naval maneuver where you position your fleet perpendicular to the enemy as line of advance, allowing all your guns to fire while they can only use their forward guns. The night of October 24th to 25, 1944, Japanese Vice Admiral Shoji Nishimura leads a force including the battleships Yamashiro and Fuso straight into the trap. At 3:53 a.m. in nearly pitch-black conditions, Admiral Oldendorf gives the order, all ships commence firing. And this is where the West Virginia shows what she's made of. Using her advanced Mark 8 fire control radar, the West Virginia achieves something remarkable. She opens fire at a range of 22,800 yards, over 12 miles, in complete darkness. Let that sink in. She's shooting at a target she can't even see with her eyes over the horizon in the middle of the night. And she doesn't just shoot, she hits. The West Virginia fires 93 rounds of 16-inch shells at the Japanese battleship Yamashiro. At 3:52 a.m., she scores her first hits. Each 16-inch shell weighs 2,700 pounds. When it hits, it penetrates armor, travels through the ship's interior, and then explodes. The effect is catastrophic. Massive explosions erupted on the Yamashiro. Fires visible for miles. The Japanese battleship's superstructure disintegrating under the barrage. The Yamashiro, a ship that was faster, more modern, and theoretically superior, was being torn apart by a battleship everyone had written off as obsolete. At 4:19 a.m., the Yamashiro capsized and sank. Only 10 of her 1/400 crew survived. But the West Virginia wasn't done. She turned her guns on the battleship Fuso, cruisers, and destroyers, contributing to one of the most one-sided naval victories in history. Of the 7 Japanese ships that entered Surigao Strait, only 1 destroyer escaped. The final tally for the West Virginia: first battleship to open fire in the battle. First to score radar-directed hits in a naval surface engagement, 93 rounds of 16-inch shells fired, no damage received. She achieved something unprecedented, sinking an enemy battleship with radar-directed fire in complete darkness. This was the moment the naval world realized the obsolete battleship had just revolutionized naval warfare. But you know what? Sinking enemy battleships is flashy, it's exciting, but it's not what made the West Virginia truly feared. What made her terrifying was something far more grinding, far more relentless. See, while fast battleships like the Iowa class were off escorting carriers and racing around the Pacific, the West Virginia had a different job. Her massive 16-inch guns and her heavy armor made her perfect for one thing: getting close to enemy-held islands and systematically destroying every fortification, bunker, and gun emplacement the Japanese had built. And this is where her obsolete design became her greatest asset. Think about it. She was slow? It didn't matter. She wasn't running from anyone. She was heavily armored? Perfect for absorbing return fire from shore batteries. She had older engines? So what? She wasn't chasing carriers? She was a siege weapon, a floating artillery battery, and the Japanese learned to dread her presence. February 16th, 1945, Iwo Jima. This tiny volcanic island, just 8 square miles, would become one of the bloodiest battles in Marine Corps history. The Japanese had spent months turning it into a fortress. Underground tunnels, concrete bunkers, artillery positions hidden in caves. Over 21,000 Japanese defenders determined to fight to the death. Before the Marines could land, those defenses had to be softened. And that's where the West Virginia came in. For 3 consecutive days, February 16th, 17th, and 18th, the West Virginia pounded Iwo Jima. She systematically worked her way around the island, her 16-inch guns demolishing targets with precision, pillboxes protecting the beaches, artillery positions on Mount Suribachi, command bunkers, ammunition depots. Anything that moved, her crew worked around the clock. Load, aim, fire. Load, aim, fire. The rhythm of destruction. Each 16-inch shell could penetrate 30 feet of reinforced concrete before exploding. Imagine being a Japanese defender, hiding in what you thought was a safe bunker. Without ships like the West Virginia, we'd never have made it off the beach. And here's the thing. The Japanese knew she was there. They could see her. They shot back. Shore batteries hit her multiple times, but she was built to take it. That old, thick, armor-absorbed hits that would have crippled newer, lighter ships. She just kept firing. March-June 1945. Okinawa. The last stepping stone before Japan itself. The Japanese throw everything they have at the American fleet. Conventional attacks, kamikazes, everything. And once again, the West Virginia is there, providing fire support for the troops ashore. Here's where her enhanced anti-aircraft armament proved its worth. Kamikaze after kamikaze dove at the fleet. The skies filled with anti-aircraft fire. The West Virginia's 40mm Bofors guns and 5-inch guns created a wall of steel around her. On April 1st, during the initial landings, she fought off multiple kamikaze attacks while simultaneously firing on shore targets. For 82 consecutive days, The West Virginia remained on station at Okinawa. Think about that. Almost 3 months of continuous combat operations. She fired over 2,000 rounds of 16-inch shells. She destroyed countless fortifications. She shot down multiple aircraft. She saved countless Marine and Army lives. And through it all, while faster, newer ships came and went, the West Virginia stayed. Because she could take the punishment, because her crew was experienced, because she was exactly where she needed to be. By the time Okinawa fell in June 1945, something remarkable had happened. The West Virginia had become the premier fire support battleship in the Pacific Fleet. Not because she was the newest, not because she was the fastest, not because she was the biggest, but because she was the best at what she did. Let me give you some numbers that'll blow your mind. West Virginia's Pacific War Service record. Battles participated in, 8 major operations, 16-inch shells fired, over 5,000 rounds in combat. Enemy vessels sunk, at least 1 battleship confirmed, multiple smaller vessels, shore targets destroyed, hundreds of fortifications. Kamikazes shot down or repelled, multiple confirmed, days in combat zones, over 300. Battle stars earned 5. Times sunk by the enemy, 1 at Pearl Harbor. Times she got back up, 1. That last one is the most important. But here's the stat that really matters. American casualties prevented by her fire support. Impossible to calculate, but easily in the thousands. Every bunker she destroyed was a bunker that couldn't kill Marines. Every gun position she silenced was one that couldn't fire on landing craft. Every artillery battery she eliminated was one that couldn't rain shells on American troops. The West Virginia didn't just fight battles. She saved lives, and the Japanese knew it. So here's the million-dollar question. How did a 20-year-old battleship, written off as obsolete, become one of the most effective warships in the Pacific? Let me break down the factors that made this possible. 1. The Navy's obsession with speed and carriers was correct for fleet actions, but they forgot something important. Not every job requires the newest, fastest, flashiest tool. Shore bombardment required. Heavy guns for penetrating fortifications, thick armor for absorbing return fire, stability for accurate firing, endurance for sustained operations. The West Virginia had all of these in spades. Her obsolete design was actually perfectly suited for the role she ended up playing. 2. This is brilliant. Instead of starting from scratch with new ships, the Navy took a proven, reliable platform and upgraded it with cutting-edge technology. The result was a ship that combined the durability and firepower of 1920s design, the accuracy and detection capabilities of 1940s technology. She had the best of both eras. 3. Many of the West Virginia's crew were Pearl Harbor survivors. They had a score to settle, they were motivated, experienced, and they knew their ship inside and out. You can't buy that kind of crew cohesion and determination. 4. The Navy learned that battleships weren't obsolete. They'd just evolved into a new role. Instead of battleship versus battleship slugfests, they became fire support platforms, anti-aircraft escorts, amphibious assault support. The West Virginia proved that obsolete is often just a failure of imagination. 5. The reconstruction of the West Virginia showed something powerful about American capabilities, the ability to not just repair, but to completely rebuild and modernize a warship in under 3 years while fighting a 2-ocean war was something no other nation could match. Here's what the West Virginia story teaches us. In warfare and in life, it's not always about being the newest, the fastest, or the flashiest. Sometimes it's about being tough enough to survive, being smart enough to adapt, being determined enough to keep fighting, being in the right place with the right capabilities. The West Virginia had all of these. She was underestimated, written off, left for dead. And she came back stronger than ever. September 1945, Tokyo Bay. The war is over. And guess where the USS West Virginia is? Right there in Tokyo Bay for the Japanese surrender ceremony. After everything she'd been through, sunk at Pearl Harbor, rebuilt from the waterline up, fighting through every major campaign, she earned the right to be present at Japan's surrender. Think about the poetry of that moment. A ship that the Japanese tried to destroy on the war's first day. Present to witness their surrender on the war's last day. If that's not poetic justice, I don't know what is. The West Virginia continued serving after the war, participating in Operation Magic Carpet, bringing American troops home from the Pacific. She was decommissioned on January 9th, 1947. In total, she served for 26 years, through 2 world wars, a complete reconstruction, and some of the most intense naval combat in history. In 1959, she was sold for scrap. But here's the thing. Her legacy lived on. The lessons she taught. 1. Never underestimate resilience. The ability to survive and adapt is often more valuable than raw power. 2. Old doesn't mean useless. With the right upgrades and the right mission, even obsolete equipment can be decisive. 3. Crew matters more than machinery. The best technology means nothing without skilled, motivated people to use it. 4. Revenge is a powerful motivator. The Pearl Harbor survivors who served on the West Virginia fought with a determination that couldn't be quantified. So why does the story of the USS West Virginia matter today? Because it's not really about a battleship. It's about being counted out and coming back stronger. It's about proving the experts wrong. It's about finding the right role for your unique strengths. December 7th, 1941, the West Virginia was a symbol of America's vulnerability, burning, sinking, seemingly finished. But by October 1944, she was a symbol of American resilience, determination, and industrial might. The ship that shouldn't have survived became the ship the enemy feared most. Think about that the next time someone tells you, you're too old, you're too slow, you're not good enough, you're obsolete, your best days are behind you. The West Virginia proved that none of that matters if you refuse to quit, adapt to the mission, play to your strengths, keep fighting. She wasn't the biggest battleship. She wasn't the fastest battleship. She wasn't the newest battleship. But when it came to doing the job that needed doing, protecting American troops, destroying enemy fortifications, and standing her ground under fire, she was the best. And that's what made her feared. Not intimidation through size or speed, but through sheer, relentless effectiveness. The Japanese learned to dread her presence not because she was flashy, but because when the West Virginia showed up, destruction followed. Methodical, precise, unstoppable. That's the legacy of the USS West Virginia, BB-48, the obsolete battleship that refused to die, the ship that came back from the dead, the underdog that became a legend. All right, history fans, that's the incredible story of the USS West Virginia. If you enjoyed this video, here's what I need you to do. 1. Smash that like button. Seriously, we're going for 15,000 likes. If we hit it, I'll drop a bonus video about another Underdog weapon that changed WWII. 2. Subscribe and hit the notification bell. I've got more incredible stories coming your way every week. 3. Drop a comment. What other obsolete weapons or Underdog stories do you want to hear about? I read every comment. 4. Share this video. Stories like this deserve to be heard. Send it to your dad, your history teacher, anyone who loves a good comeback story. And if you want to go deeper into WWII naval history, check out the video I'm putting in the cards right now about related topic. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being part of this community. Remember, never count out the underdog.